Okay, so we're on the back side of notes, and we're just going to finish up 7, 8, and 9, and then we'll leave the undefined fraction part for the next video, since this is a long day of notes. So in number 7, again, look, that's a binomial on top, a trinomial on the bottom, and you cannot reduce any of those terms. You can only reduce factors. And the only way you're going to get factors in order to reduce them is if you factor. So taking a look at the top binomial, first question we ask ourselves when we're factoring, can we pull anything out? And the answer is yes, you can pull out a 6x. Left over would be an x plus 2, and that has been factored. On the bottom, this is a trinomial. However, there is something in common, and so we will go ahead and pull it out. And I'm just going to pull it out over here. So I'm going to pull out I might go up here. I'll pull out the x and be left with x squared minus 5x minus 14. I can kind of foresee that I was going to have an easy trinomial still left, and so we'll x box it. And we're going to look for numbers that multiply to negative 14 and at the same time add to negative 5. And hopefully you come up with that they have to be 7 and 2. And that the 7 must be negative to get the negative 5 on the bottom, and then they multiply to get you negative 14 at the top. So we have the right numbers. Okay, I am going to go ahead and come down here with this. I'm going to have to remember to put that x that we pulled out as a greatest common factor, and then the easy trinomial will factor into x minus 7 and x plus 2. And now we're going to go scope out for any factors that are exactly the same. And we see them, the x plus 2 and the x plus 2. So they're identical. They're going to reduce to 1. And you don't need to write the 1 because there's still other stuff left over. So that stuff times 1 is still just that stuff. And that's why it's not necessary to write the 1. Okay. A lot of people will say that this has been reduced, that there is nothing else. However, there is. This x next to the 6 here, there is multiplication between the 6 and the x. And so I could go ahead and take that x and cancel it with the x on the bottom because, again, there's multiplication between that x and what's next to it, the x minus 7. And so they are a pair of factors, and we could go ahead and reduce those x's. Okay. I also say numbers with numbers and letters with letters because a lot of people want to change that to like a 5x on top. So just be careful. All right. There is no number on the bottom that will reduce with the 6, and that's why the 6 does not change. Okay. All right. So now we're just going to go ahead and write what's left over. On the top, we only have one thing, and it's the 6. On the bottom, we have that x minus 7. And again, if you want to keep that x minus 7 in parentheses, you can. If you don't want to, that is completely fine. There's nothing else in here, though, that will reduce, and so that is our answer. Okay. Number 8, first type of factor, and we always ask ourselves, is there something in common, a greatest common factor? And there is a number, which is 5, and a variable of x. So we're going to go ahead and pull out the 5x, and I'm going to do it right up here. And that's going to go ahead and leave me with an x squared minus 5x minus 6. And I could have foreseen that that was going to be a trinomial left over, so we can go ahead and set up our x box. We're going to multiply to negative 6, and at the same time, we're going to add to that negative 5. Okay. The numbers must be 6 and 1, and to get a negative 5, we're going to make the 6 negative. So that will make our multiply to negative 6 and our add to negative 5. And I'm going to go ahead and take that and finish it off down here. So I'm going to remember the 5x, and then the easy trinomial will break up into x minus 6 and x plus 1. Okay, on the bottom, always ask yourself, is there anything in common? Yes, a number is 10, and there's also an x squared. So I'm going to go ahead and factor it right underneath it. So I'm going to pull out the 10, x squared. Left over would be x squared minus 5x minus 6. Okay, and so we're going to go over here and we'll do our x box again. We're multiplying to negative 6 and we're adding to negative 5. Oh, wait, we just did that in the other x box. So we already know the numbers are negative 6 and 1. And And then we're going to go ahead and take that down here. So we have to remember the 10x squared that we initially pulled out. And then the trinomial would break up into the same x minus 6 and x plus 1. That doesn't usually happen. That's okay. All right, so again, x minus 6, exactly the same. They reduce to 1. Writing the 1 is not necessary because there's other stuff being left over, and that stuff times 1 is still just that stuff. Okay, same thing with the x plus 1. They are exactly the same, and they will reduce to positive 1. And taking a look at our numbers with numbers. So 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 10 twice, and now our letters with our letters. This x will be completely gone, and it will reduce with one of the x's from the x squared, but there will be an x left over. Okay, all right, so on the top, there's actually nothing left. However, that 1 is going to be necessary to be up on the top in our numerator so that it can hold the denominator down. And in the denominator, we have a 2x left over. And there is our answer. Okay. All right, number 9. It says, which of the following is equivalent to that fraction? So all of our answers look much less complex than what we started with. So what they did was they took this fraction and they simplified it. But in order to simplify it, they would have to factor it since we have addition and subtraction between our terms and not multiplication. And so looking at top, if we take a look, that there is nothing in common to pull out. It is a trinomial, but that 2 right there makes that a hard trinomial. Boo. It's going to make us do a bunch more work. So we'll have to make sure we have enough side room to work on him. So we're going to go ahead and do our X box. Our multiply is going to be the 3 in the back times the 2 in the front, so 6. And our add is going to be the negative 7 in the middle. And our numbers are going to have to be 6 and 1 to get the negative 7. How about negative 6 and negative 1? All right, again, remember he's a sad face. He's got more work to do. So we're going to go over off to the side and we're going to rewrite our 2x squared. We'll take the minus 6x next, followed by the minus 1x, and then the plus 3. Regroup and factor out something from the first one, which is a 2x, left with an x minus 3. Out of the second group, we have to pull out the negative and a 1. Left over would be an x minus 3. Okay. Good news, those match. And so x minus 3 becomes our first factor. And the guys on the outside make 2x minus 1 as our second factor. Okay, so that top has now been factored. Okay, on the bottom, we're actually not going to factor it. We're actually going to expand it. 3x minus x all squared really means 3 minus x times 3 minus x. And those actually end up being our factors because there's multiplication in between them. Okay, so now that everything has been factored or expanded, in this case on the bottom, now we're ready to look for factors that are exactly the same. And we don't have any. But you might see these factors, and this is one of those cases on the front. So this x here is positive. This x here is negative. Those are opposites. This 3 is negative. This 3 is positive. And so the x's are opposites. The 3's are opposite, which makes these factors complete opposites. And those complete opposite factors reduce to a negative 1. And again, I just put a negative sign. Okay. And so now we have to figure out, what do we have left? We have the negative, and then in parentheses is the 2x minus 1, and you don't have to write the parentheses unless you distribute the negative. And then on the bottom, we have the 3 minus x. Okay, and again, if you want to leave them in parentheses to remind yourself that you cannot reduce anything else from those, you can. And now we got to figure out which one of these choices do we have. Let's see. None of them have parentheses, so it looks to me that they may have distributed. So I'm going to have to go and distribute now. This would be a negative 2x plus 1 over 3 minus x. Is that any of our choices? Yes. Do you see it? There's the negative 2x. Just like our negative 2x, We have a plus 1 next to it. There's the plus 1. And on the bottom, we have a 3 minus x. That matches completely. Be very careful when you pick your choices because all of those look extremely similar. All right. So hopefully you understand simplifying fractions. Okay. And I'll catch you back up on undefined fractions on the bottom on the next day.